Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at how to create some effective rhythms using power chords. I'm going to start with what I refer to as the Power 5, which is the 5 open position power chords. We're going to look at E, A, D, G, and C. Okay, so let's just go through those really quick. We have an E power chord. Now, if you're not sure of what this is, a power chord is a chord that's neither major nor minor. It doesn't sound major, it doesn't sound minor. It doesn't sound either one, it just kind of is what it is. So if you think of an E chord, for instance, the third string is the one that makes it sound major or minor. A power chord doesn't want that third string because it doesn't want to sound major or minor, so you just don't play it. So instead of making this whole chord and then trying to either not make that finger or make that finger or whatever, you don't even do that. You just take your first finger and you press it on the 5th and 4th strings, and then you just kind of lay against the other strings down here to kind of intentionally deaden them out, and that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. So this E power chord is played by simply pressing on the 5th and 4th strings and then strumming the top couple of strings. Now you could hit the top 3 and it'd be fine, but you want to try and avoid hitting any more than that. If I want an A open power chord, I'm going to move that finger down 1 string. So now I'm pressing on the 4th and 3rd strings, and I'm going to strum 5, 4, and then possibly 3. But again, I want to really be careful to avoid hitting any strings I don't want. D power chord in the open position is a little bit harder. What you're going to be doing is taking the D chord that you always play, but we don't want the first string. So what most people do is they just simply take that middle finger off, and then you kind of touch the first string with the flesh of your 3rd finger. So you're kind of, if you look over at my left hand there, you'll see that I'm just kind of touching right here, I'm kind of touching that first string, so it kills the sound of it. Okay? So again, I want to be careful. I want to strum the 4th string, the 3rd string, and possibly the 2nd string, but I want to be careful to avoid that first string if I can. Then we're going to make a 4-finger G, okay? But what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take my index finger off the guitar, and I'm going to kill that 5th string. I'm going to deaden it by simply touching with the flesh of my middle finger. I'm going to touch that 5th string and deaden it, so when I strum, again, it becomes a power chord because I'm not playing the note that makes it sound major or minor. And then my C chord is going to be done by doing the same thing. I'm going to take this middle finger here, I'm going to move it down 1 string onto the 5th string, and I'm going to kill the string underneath it, deaden the string underneath it, and I'm going to get a C power chord sound that way. So those are the 5 chords, and again, I don't want to dwell on the chords for a long time because that's really not what this course is about. But those are the 5 essential open chords, and if you don't really know those, I'm going to explain them to you. I'm going to explain how to make them sound good, and then I'm also going to play these things on an electric guitar so you can see what they sound like there too. Okay, so what I've got is E, A, D, G, C. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to figure out how to clean up these chords, because now we're dealing with the fact that we don't want to strum a lot of strings for the most part. Like on an E power chord, you're not strumming everybody. So the easiest thing to do is when you come across and you're going to make that E power chord, again, as I had just stated, you want to use the bottom part of your finger to lightly touch those strings that you don't want. That way, if you accidentally strum too far, you're not going to get sound from those strings. So you're sort of overprotecting yourself. But if you know anything about the guitar, we have what's called sympathetic vibration. And what sympathetic vibration is when you play something and then other things start vibrating as a result of that. So for instance, if I did this, the strings start vibrating. So if I'm touching those strings, they're not able to vibrate. So part of learning how to play chords that are not completely open chords is you start learning how to gain control of the strings that you don't want. So in this E power chord, I'm deadening out the bottom 3 strings that I don't want, and I've got my top 3 strings available. But I'm also protecting myself because I'm primarily trying to strum the top 2. If I hit the 3rd string, it's perfectly fine. Okay, but I want to try and avoid hitting any more than that. And I do have them protected over here, but I'm not strumming them, okay? Then I move down to my A power chord, which is just 1 string down, okay? Now here, I'm going to try and deaden out the bottom 2 strings with the flesh of my index finger here, which I'm doing. But I also want to deaden out the 6th string because I don't want that. So this is where you can take your thumb around the top, and you can kill that 6th string simply by lightly touching it. Now again, with the guitar pick, my intention is not to hit the 6th string. It's not to hit the bottom 2 strings. It's to hit the 5th string and the 4th string, and possibly the 3rd string. And then I move down to the D power chord, which is a D chord, minus the middle finger on the 1st string. I want to deaden out that string. And now I can't touch all of these up here. So I really just have to be kind of careful. I can still touch the 6th string, but I can't really touch the 5th string. So I just want to be careful with my pick. So what I want you to notice about my strumming on these 3 chords, on the E, on the A, and on the D, is I have a bit more of this wrist strumming, almost like the closed position that we were talking about. Okay, I'm being a lot more careful. I don't really need to grab onto the guitar at this point, but I am staying nice and small and staying over, just kind of hovering over the strings that I actually want to strum. Now, as I do that, you'll notice that it becomes a little more difficult to just openly strum down and up. That's why you hear a lot of rock players, as they start entering these power chords, everything becomes a little more down strummy, which almost kind of sounds like a locomotive. It's like a train. You know, kind of that sound starts happening with a lot of this style of music. So that's where that's going to come from, is you're trying to create this. I mean, the power chord itself sounds a bit more aggressive than open chords do. And when you add some downstrumming, some consistent downstrumming, it gives it that aggression. Now, needless to say, there's always ups available. It's always there. But for instance, if we were talking about, you know, punk music or whatever it might be, or just good heavy rock and roll, you know, you're dealing a lot more with this. Now, it's still consistent. I'm still strumming down. And if I wanted to leave space, I would move away from the strings. And I'm still using dynamics by strumming harder and softer. I'm just doing it all with downstrums at this point. Now, when I get to the G open power chord, which is a full G chord, but instead of playing the 1st finger, I deadened out that 5th string with the flesh of my middle finger there. Now I'm opening up more. And then when I play the C, I simply move that finger down. I do the same thing. Now, this is what I want you to notice. When I go to this C power chord right here, the C open power chord, I'm deadening out the 4th string with the flesh of my middle finger right here. I'm taking the flesh of that finger right there, and I'm lightly touching that 4th string, so it kills it. So as I strum through, you just don't hear that string. I am strumming it, obviously, but you just don't hear it. Same thing's happening on the G, deadening the string underneath there. But on this C power chord right now that I'm making, the unique thing about this is I'm using the tip of my middle finger to lightly touch underneath the 6th string. So it's killing the 6th string and the 4th string as I strum. Now again, I don't want to strum the 6th string, but if I would, you won't hear it because it's not going to vibrate. Okay? So I'm protecting myself by touching the top string, the 6th string, with the tip of my index or my middle finger. Now, when I do that, I'm not putting it on there and then pushing up, because then you change the pitch of the string and it sounds all weird. So it's not that. It's that I have to strategically place it in the right place. So I'm pressing on the 5th string, like I should, but I'm deadening out the 6th string and the 4th string by placing it in that right position. So it takes a little while to get used to, but it's a really great technique, and we're going to talk more about this as we keep going through our course here. So you see, with those 2 chords, I can give it a power chord sound, but still strum in that open style. But when I go to D, I got to be a little more careful about what I'm strumming. Or A, or E. Okay, I just have to be more careful. It doesn't mean you can't strum down and up. Of course you can. It doesn't mean you can't strum with more of an elbow style movement. You can. I just want you to be aware that as you start moving from the wrist more, especially with those down strums, it starts becoming more aggressive. It starts becoming a bit more rock and roll, a bit more edgy blues, you know, that sort of thing. Okay? So that's what I want you to explore a little bit. Let's make a chord progression out of this that you can explore. So I'm going to take this E power chord, this G power chord, this D power chord, and then back to the E power chord. I want you to do this. Then you're going G, then you're going D, then E again. Do it again, E. Kind of explore some rhythm things. Keep it tight, G. So if you do want to open up your strum, you just really have to be careful to protect the strings that you're not supposed to be strumming. You're supposed to be deadening those strings. Because as you get more wild with your strumming, you're going to hit some of those strings, and you need to make sure that they're not making sound. A lot of times as you get more technical in your playing, and we'll keep going, you'll see it as we keep going in this course here, but what happens is that when people watch you play, they see all the things that you're doing. They don't necessarily see the things that you're not doing. It's all the behind-the-scenes stuff that's really difficult. You know, yes, you're making a chord, but at the same time, you're deadening out all these other strings while you're making this chord. And you're strumming it, but at the same time, you're trying to not hit these other strings. There's all kinds of sort of double sections of things that are going on. When you're doing this, you're also doing something else to avoid having the ability to hear those things. So think about that a little bit as you're playing these. I want you to explore those open chords a little bit. I'm going to switch over to electric, and I'm going to come right back, and I'm going to show you what this looks like and what it sounds like, adding a bit of distortion now and trying to deal with that element in your rhythm playing. So good luck, and I'll see you in just a minute.